Hi everybody, this is October 17th, 2024, and I'm posting these videos as part of my journal of recovery from the trauma of watching my little brother, Paul Cairns, 64, be locked up by the BC New Democratic Party government and then die at Burnaby General. He was locked up for 588 days by David Eby, acting premier, self-appointed premier David Eby. And he was locked up and our visits were terminated. Our visitation agreement was terminated when I complained to the police about a secret power of attorney the BC New Democratic Party gave to created to give my brother the COVID-19 jab because I had a anti-COVID vaccine sister who lived here and who had been caring for my brother Paul. And I was in such a fog. Paul died on April 23rd of 2024 after 588 days of being locked up in the most horrific of circumstances. The BC government appointed my evil nun sister from 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario, who's never lived with Paul and who's never contributed a moment of care for him or a dime for his upkeep, as his guardian, so that they could actually control him and he wouldn't have any agency at all. It's the most cruel and the worst miscarriage of justice in British Columbia history that I'm aware of, and I practiced law from May 15th of 1992 until June 1st of 2014. Anyways, so we're on the eve of the election after 7 years of British Columbia New Democratic Party socialist rule. We're on the eve of the most important election in the history of my beautiful province. I came here in 1971. I came to Creston, BC to pick cherries and to work on a farm. And then I came back. I went to university here. I raised 2 children. I was the first single mother of 2 children to graduate from the University of British Columbia Law School. Somebody's tired. Somebody needs to go to bed. And I contributed a lot to this province. And there's just some facts that sort of I've been helping Hamed Najafi, my candidate for the Conservative Party of British Columbia, pretty much round the clock for the last 5 days. And we're coming down to the wire. Election day, E-Day they call it, is on October 19th, Saturday, October 19th. And there's some thoughts that come to mind as we prepare for the election. So while there's some facts that are sort of stand out in my mind as to how wholly unsuitable a government, and this is really the worst government in the world, even worse than Haiti, in my view, in my opinion, my observation, that there's some things that come to mind as being relevant in terms of considering who you should vote for. So David Eby is a self-appointed premier. When the person who was actually elected, John Horgan, came down with cancer, David Eby appointed himself premier. He was never voted in as premier. And he's wreaked havoc on this beautiful, blessed province. So just a couple of things come to mind in terms of what I've learned over the last few days. Is that David Eby started off with a surplus. He got a surplus budget from the previous government of $2.5 billion. And since in the last 7 years, he's racked up a deficit of $9 billion. So he's lost $11.5 billion. So that's one thing. But, to me, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that in the last 7 years, 15,000 British Columbians have died of illicit drug overdoses, many with drugs, opiates, given to the victims by the government itself in a misguided death wish program they call Safe Supply. And then the third fact that comes to mind is being relevant in a public sort of way. I just read a fact today that the single greatest cause of death among children 10 years old to 18 years old now is drug overdoses. Wrap your mind around that. The single highest cause of death of children 10 to 18 is drug overdoses in British Columbia. British Columbia has the highest rate by far of drug overdose deaths, double of all of the drug overdoses in Canada. Half are in British Columbia, and we certainly don't have half of Canada's 40 million population. And incidentally, British Columbia also has the highest rate of physician-assisted death, medical-assisted death in Canada, which is a whole other tragedy and travesty and miscarriage of justice. So that's all the sort of public things that you think about when you think about how this new democratic socialist communist bunch of commies it's really a death cult. The havoc is wreaked on the poor people of British Columbia. But my story is much more personal. I had worked hard my whole life, raised 2 productive adult children. I've got 4 grandchildren. I've had a hard life. I've had 2 marriages. And I'd hoped to relax and have fun and be able to give a little bit of, bring a little sunshine to my brother's life, my younger brother with Down syndrome, who I admire tremendously. And we were put through a living hell. It was so easy for them to handle. It wasn't a hard thing. It wasn't like dealing with a fentanyl infusion into British Columbia. It was just allowing 2 siblings that wanted to hang out together. But that they handled, they completely mishandled in the cruelest, most sadistic way possible. And when you mismanage the tiniest things, it felt like torture. Me worrying about my little brother, wondering how he was doing, listening to his voice on the telephone. We were allowed a 10-minute telephone call once a week, and he would beg and plead with me to visit him. He would say over and over again, as if I didn't understand. He would say, I love you, I love you, I love you. I miss you. Take me to a movie. He didn't understand what was going on and why his visits with me had been terminated. He was my last living relative from my family in the lower mainland British Columbia, and I was his last living visitor. But this evil government, out of some kind of sadistic, evil intent, communistic intent, locked him up, locked him away, and I did everything in my powers to try and restore our visits. But every single person that we had contact with and who were decision makers with regards to his care were NDP operatives, NDP government agencies. So Paul's member of the legislature was Anne Kang, the Minister of Municipalities. She never met with me. His MP was Jagmeet Singh, another NDP operative. He never met with me. My member of the British Columbia provincial legislature was Selena Robinson. She never met with me. And my MP was NDP operative Bonita Zarilla. She never met with me. And every single day while we were separated, after my court applications failed, I was unable to restore our visits. Every single day I'd put on my nicest clothes, my lawyer type outfits. I'd dress as nicely as I could, get on the SkyTrain and go to the government office that had Paul's file and have them stamp a letter asking for them to meet with me so that I could make my complaint about Paul's isolation and confinement. I would go to the library and pick up his books and exchange his books every 3 weeks for 588 days. I bought him Halloween pumpkins, Christmas presents. And in all of that time, the BC New Democratic Party government only allowed us one hour in-person visit for Christmas on December 22nd of 2023. So if a government so cruelly and senselessly injures citizens in a very simple little matter that would be so easy to handle, then you can guarantee they're not going to be able to handle the big things well. And they've destroyed, by every metric possible that a government can be judged by, the New Democratic British Columbia government has failed British Columbia and turned it into a hellhole of the likes of Haiti. When you go downtown to my beautiful Vancouver, you see zombies walking around, bent over in half because of some kind of drug they're taking that makes them bend over and look at the ground. And the people lying on the pavement, you don't know if they're dead, you don't know if they're alive. Anyways, I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. Oh, and there was one other thing. Was contacted by a chiropractor who's a representative of a huge group. Hundreds and hundreds of doctors and medical practitioners contacted me this morning, and he asked me to post a video of the legislation that I wasn't aware of. It was done secretly against lawyers and doctors. And this is a legislation, the medical part is called the Health Practitioners and Occupations Act. And what it does is that if any health practitioner expresses a view that is different than the government view, they can have the full impact of the state brought down upon them, including to be fined up to $200,000, have their license taken away, and go to prison for 2 years for expressing a view different than the government view. And this was, I assume, as response to the COVID-19 outbreak, that the government had found a way to undermine all of our charter rights, destroy, and with the COVID, as they did with my brother, they had given my brother forged and fraudulent power of attorney to give him the COVID shot. And when I complained to the police, they terminated our visitation agreement. So there's just some thoughts that I have in terms of please get out, and if you haven't already, vote for your Conservative candidate. I'm doing everything in my power. And I feel like Paul is the wind beneath my wings. I can feel him whenever I'm tired and I just think I can't climb another set of stairs to somebody's home to drop off some materials. Paul lifts me up those stairs. I miss him so much. They were so needlessly cruel. You know, sometimes you have to be cruel, and sometimes people lose stuff that they wanted or they could have had or should have had. But this was senseless cruelty. cruelty for the sake of cruelty. David Eby is an evil, evil man. So get out there. Let's be the blue wave and bring. It's going to take a big cleanup on aisle 7 to restore British Columbia to its former dignity and beauty and restore the rights of its citizens. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.